Interstate Rock presents How to Build a Water Feature with Jerry Cates. Your home investment is so important, we at Interstate Rock want to make sure you do the very best with your landscaping. If that includes a pond or water feature, let the experts from Interstate Rock help you. Now sit back and relax and let Jerry lead you through the steps of building your own backyard feature.
Okay, this is exciting for me because now I get an opportunity to actually teach you how to build a water feature and do it the right way. I want to show you from the ground up. I don't want to cut any corners because this isn't a sales promotion, this is the actual construction. One of the biggest problems people have is they don't really know where to put a water feature, so I'd like to talk about that for a minute. First, the water feature needs to be where you're going to use it, where it's going to get the use or the enjoyment in that. I can't see putting a water feature in a place where you're never going to see it and never going to do it. If you're going to build your neighbors a water feature, build it in their yard. There's no reason to build it in an area that you'll never get to enjoy it. The water feature kind of goes to where it's going to go would be the size you're going to have too. If you're going to do a front yard water feature, you want to make it fit the front yard. You don't want this oversized water feature in your front yard and bigger than the house. If you're going to do a backyard water feature, you got to make sure your backyard's big enough to fit the type of water feature you're going to build. On the water feature, you're going to have the uses. What type of uses are you going to do? I would say a lot of people put them in for fish. They want to raise the fish, the excitement about the fish. There's going to be problems from that. You're going to have raccoons or neighbor cats or possums trying to get your fish, so your water feature needs to be constructed for the fish and to help house the fish. You got to have the right aeration, and those are some of the factors that you have to do. Later on in this video, as we build and construct, we'll hit on to a few of those points. If you're going to have plants, you want to make sure you want to have the right shelving for the plants, the plants need to be in the right place in that, so you have the temperature problem. There's also issues on, being able to put a bog garden in one end of the pond, which is actually very effective for the aesthetics of the pond and that. If you're going to use your pond for entertainment, yeah, usually I would say a backyard, if that's the main place where you're going to spend your time entertaining, with a nice patio, a deck surrounding the water feature and that. There's a number of uses of a water feature and the size of that. A lot of that determines on what kind of use you're going to do with your water feature. Okay, before you dig your pond, you need to call. You call your local utility companies, and they have locators that come out. It's usually free of charge, depending on your area. They'll come out and locate, make sure you don't have any underground surprises in that. Also check with your landscaper that's landscaped your place, or unless you already know about any sprinkler systems that are possibly in there, any lines that need to be moved in that. You don't want to start digging and running into any surprises. There's a possibility that there would be a permit issue that you'd have to check with your local county and that on permits. In my expertise of what I've done so far, that's not usually a case, but different places have different ordinances in that. And you got to make sure that both the husband and the wife are involved in this, because you don't want to start any family feuds in that. So you want to make it a family project. You want to make it enjoyable. If it's not enjoyable, why do it? So I think let's get started. Okay, what I'm doing here now is I'm marking my territory here. And I want to just kind of be creative here a little bit. Kind of roll it in, get a flow going. The good thing about using paint like this is you can erase it until after you dug it. Okay, that kind of resembles the pond that we want to try to tackle. I see a couple of changes I'd like to make, and that's easy. I got a couple of tools. I got a can of paint, and really easy to mark the spot. Tape measure, and kind of gets its focus in the right direction. Okay, here's one of the tools that I like to use. This tool makes it easy for me because I like to do it the easy way, but you don't have to use this tool. This can be done primarily by your basic hand tools and that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start excavating the circle I drew here, and I'm going to start doing some shelving in that a little bit too. So hang on to your seats, here we go. Now this machine here, even a little 12-year-old that runs video machines can actually build with it. You can see it's going to take me a minute to get used to it again. Okay, I got a little excited here. I think we better mark out our spot for a waterfall before we get a big old hole dug here. And I'd like it kind of cascading down behind this big rock here. And so I'm going to have to make it wide enough so I can get the falls in there, make it keep the natural look. Now, so I got to still get my coordination on this machine. I think I'll move this rock right here out of the way. So the nice thing about having this piece of equipment is makes it real easy to move the materials out of your way. I'd like to see you do this by hand. Okay, now I think the big one there, I'll just cable it and slide it down, or I can drag it down separate. My game plan is to have the water cascade down from this big rock right here, and we'll kind of just kind of flow down between those rocks and that. It's good to have a mound. If you don't have a mound already, you can take the soil that you're digging the pond with, and you can use that soil on to build your mound with. One of the keys, though, is to have good compaction, because you don't want your ground settling on you after you get your waterfall in, because then you'll end up with this big old slushy spots. Oh, hi! You caught me working in that. Well, since you last seen me, I've been doing a lot of work here, getting busy. I want to introduce you to my son Danny and show you this is a family operation here. We're both tackling it together. Since I started digging that, I kind of excavated the ground out here. I've created, of course, you were here when we did the painting out for the pond and that. We've created some shelving in that. This is developed so we can do a lot of planting along the side. We've got our 3 foot in depth and that, and right now me and Danny are going to take and measure our elevations across the top of the pond to let you know where we are. Dan, I'm going to need your help. Okay, what I have here is a roll of your construction twine, and then we have a little line level. Really simple, really inexpensive. And what we're going to do is we're going to shoot our elevations across here to find where our highs and lows are. Okay, Dan, I'm going to take that to the other side, and I'm going to need that level, or that tape measure over there too. Okay, one thing we wanted to achieve here is we did want to get our 3 foot in depth, because we're definitely going to have fish in it. And we wanted some nice shallow shelves. We're going to, for different kind of plants and that, and then we want depth, more deeper ones for your bigger potted plants. On the right-hand corner over here, we're going to have a bog garden, and so we're going to be pretty, it's the first time I've done a bog garden, to be honest with you, so it's going to be an experience for me and for you. So, okay, Dan, we're high on that end, so what we've done is we developed our low spot that we believe is, and we'll move around the pond, okay? Work your way around. Keep your line tight, Dan. Okay, right in there. Let's check it right in there. Okay, we're starting to create a level here across. Go ahead and work your way over. Let's check that. That's eyeballing. That looks like a low spot. Okay. So we found our lowest spot, and our lowest spot is up here by the falls, so that's where we'll do our overflow. We'll put a ADS drain pipe in there, and that will allow the water, when the pond overfills from the rain that the Northwest does have, and it'll run out to the street and that, so we don't have to worry about the overflow. I'm going to measure my depth now with once we create a level. That's good right there, Dan. And we're just hair under 3 feet, so I'm really happy with this. We've got a little rainwater sitting in the bottom from last night's rain and that, but 3 feet's just about right. So let's go ahead and pull her over, Dan, and wind that up. Now what I'd like to do now is measure for my filter system. The filter system's good to have in the bottom of the pond, and I'll explain the filter system to you a little more in detail. But right now I just want to see how long of one I have to get made up in that. I'm going to go the longest length of the bottom, deepest part of the pond. Dan, you want to hold on to that? Okay, we got about a 9-foot, 8-9-foot filter system is going to be fine for this. We're going to put our pump on the far end over here, so when the water is flowing down the falls and that, it's the pump sucking from the farthest end. And then that way it's returning the water back up the falls, and it gives a good circulation for the pond. And I'd like to explain that a little more in detail too. Now, but we, looks like there's some clouds out there, so we want to get moving on this one before we get rained on here and get this hole covered. Now, so from here we're going to measure out and figure out what kind of liner size that we're going to need. So we'll go from the farthest extent. Let's go from that corner there, Dan. Okay, I got 24 feet, and we're looking at 3 feet in depth. So we'll go 6 feet on 6 feet for our length, for added onto it. So 22 and 6, that's 28 feet. I think on this one here, I'm going to go with a 30 foot in length, just to be, I like a little security, a little extra in that. I like to, now when the falls, I'll do 2 pieces on the falls. So I want to go up the falls just a little, right, that first level right there. I got 20 feet, and if we do this 6 foot for your depth again, so I make it 26 feet. So I feel pretty comfortable with the 26 by 30 foot liner. And then let's move over here to the falls now. Now, all of what we've done now is we've just established how deep the pond is, which our deepest spot's 3 feet, and you times that by 2 because you're going up both sides, and then you measure your farthest distance, length, and width in that. Well, what you see we've done here on the falls, besides removing a couple of rocks, we've developed some shelving. On the falls, it's more of a creativity here. They're going to come out how they come out and how you make them. So I wouldn't put a lot of time and effort to get excited about them. Now just make some nice shelves, get the water to flow the way you want it to flow, and then as you can rechange it and restructure it with your rock as you're going. I think right here we're going, it's 9 feet, so I think I'll overextend that a little bit, maybe go 10, 11, 12 feet on the length. We're about 5 feet, maybe go a couple more feet, so about 11 by 12, or I mean 7 by 12 would probably take care of the falls. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring the pool liner up, bring it up the falls, and then I'll take the falls liner and have it go overlap it. And that way all of the water will stay inside. The key to this is you're making one big container, and holding the water inside the container is the most important part. This is our low spot right here, by this rock here, and that will show where the water depth is going to be where it falls into the falls. So if we run that string line, let's run the string line across. What I'm doing here is I'm developing the water level for the water falling in the pond. Now the water's not going to be any higher than that if it's up to the edge of that ledge right there. So this is going to be where the water falls in. So what I'm going to do is create a nice kind of bubbling effect and have the water fall in. I'm not going to do a straight fall on this. I think I'm going to do more of a creek look. Because I've done too many falls, and I think I'll be a little more, make this a little more exciting. This soil here is perfect for putting a pond in. It's a sandy loam soil. There's no rocks. I haven't found a rock one in this. We've got a pile of sand that we were going to pad this with, but I don't even think we're going to use it, to be honest with you. I think what we're going to do is just groom it and pack it down and make it so we don't have any settling going on in that. So what we'll do now is we'll finish grooming our side banks and that. We'll get the liner cut and then we'll get back to work and we'll show you how to lay the liner. Okay, what we're going to do here, as you see, I incorporate a little more muscle, and this is a pretty big liner. We're using the 45 mil rubber liner, butyl rubber. It's got a 22 year warranty on it. It's 300% elasticity. That's a hard word to say, and it holds up. You can put big boulders on it, can freeze, everything, and it holds up. You still got to do the normal precautions in that, but this could take the beating. And let's go ahead and, guys, we're going to go ahead and start stretching this across. We want to go from end to end, and then what we'll do is come back and refold the corners and tuck and roll. Let's go. Try not to slip on the edges as you guys come up the bank, and then walk right up that waterfall, Dan. Okay, that's good. Okay, what our next challenge is going to be is hold it in place on the edges and then start bringing the inside down and that. The key to this is get it so it sits flat down on the bottom of the pool. You don't want a lot of bowing in it, so when you put your rock on, it stretches out. One thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of padding underneath the rock so we don't have any sharp edges punching in. Also, the liner's fine to walk on if you got a cushion underneath, like the sandy loam that we have here, maybe a little bit of sand, or even in I'm sitting here panting for air, but even in real hard to work rocky areas, they'll even use carpet bedding, which also will rot out eventually, but it gives you a good base for underneath the liner. Okay, guys, so why don't we have one of you stand on the edge? I'll stand up here. Okay, and hold that down, and then the rest of us just kind of walk it in and bring it this way as we come. As you can see here, I've got plenty of extra line here because I don't want to have not enough. Okay, right here where we got to pull it in. The advantage of using the rubber liner is you can actually mold it to the bottom of your pool so you can get the shape you want. What we've done here is kind of an off kidney shape, and I've got a little landing here so you can actually walk right up into your pool. Okay, we're going to pull this. Okay, when we come back, we'll demonstrate how to cover the liner and start putting the rock on the liner and that. And we're going to also go ahead and I'll have the guys will go ahead and get the liner. You can see we're up the falls a little bit. I'll bring the short piece of liner up and over that. And that way we're guaranteed no leaks. We've been pretty aggressive here. As you can see, we've done quite a bit of excavating and laying of rock. What I want to do is talk about some of the things that we're putting into the pond and that, because I don't want you to go putting your pond in and not have all the true details in that. I want to talk about the filter system a little bit. This filter system is top of the line. We've done a lot of research putting it together, and we've got about 8 years into it total. We've taken some flat ADS pipe, and it's perforated, and we've wrapped it with a fiberglass screen. And then we take it and we cut a hole in it, and we mounted a 3-inch ADS sleeve. Now this sleeve is where the pump's going to sit. We're going to take this filter system here and we're going to put 6 inches of aquarium gravel over it, and this will lay flat in the bottom of the pond. In our pond here, as you can see, we've got an 8-footer going from one end to the other, and earlier in the program here we measured it out. This here will be laying down in the bottom of the pond. We'll put 6 inches of aquarium gravel over the top of it, and then the pump will set here. The pump needs to have a tight fit so it can do the suction only from inside here. Your water will be forced through the gravel and up through the pump and then to the top of the falls. We've located our pump to the far end over here so that the water will be the farthest, suction will be farthest away from the falls, which creates a circular motion in your pond. We've already talked about the liner, and we got the liner covered 1 inch in the pond and laying. We've done, we're getting ready to do some plumbing in that. We've already, as you can see in the falls here, we've already taken and started building our falls. We've laid our rocks, just kind of stacked them. The key to this here, the whole key, is making sure that the liner is above the flow of the water and a flow of any splash. I take a little torpedo level, and this will create the flow of the water and the level. As you can see here, I go off of each rock where the water is going to flow and make sure that the water can move through freely and easily, but has a kind of a tumbling, a natural effect. I've taken and I've used mortar, and I've mortared up underneath the cracks and the crevices so all the water is forced down through here. You'll have a little bit of loss, but that's kind of that the water will go behind, but that's why you want to make sure you got a big enough pump and enough water flow so you still have the water effect. Now, later on, you'll see this, we'll have her completed, and then we'll get the water flowing here. We've got a little ways to go. One thing that we've done here is, you see, we've taken the rock. Now, one of the keys here that I really enjoy is making this look natural. I don't want a bunch of liner showing, and you think, wow, this big hole with liner in it, how are you going to cover the whole thing up? Well, what we've done is we've taken and stacked what we call a windswept moss rock, and we've stacked it up along the edges and that, and then what we'll do in turn is take the river rock and fill all of the voids in. This here, our water elevation on this right here is going to be hitting about 12 to 14 inches. This will be good for a big pot, water pot, or it'd be good for the fish that swim up in here, but it's still deep enough that it'll keep your raccoons and that out. One thing I want to do is try to create some shelving underneath the rocks and that, so the fish do have a place to hide. That's important, and we'll do a little more of this as we go along. What I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about the plumbing. There's several types of plumbing that you can use. What we use is the same stuff that they use in hot tubs, swimming pools. It's a PVC pipe, and on this one here we'll be going 2 inch, and we'll take the 2 inch pipe and run it from the pump down below, hide it through the rocks, and weave it through the rocks all the way to the top. The key to the PVC pipe, though, is it needs to be buried. It needs to be out of the sunlight. Sunlight does deteriorate on it, so you got to make sure you have it covered. This pipe, you can also glue all your normal PVC fittings to it, so there's no problem with that. On a pond this big, I might even be apt to even put a circulating valve on. So what I would do is, where my valve comes up, I'll put a T in it, and in that T, I'll have one of the lines go to the other end of the pond just to keep the water moving, maybe just a little bit of water in that, so especially if we don't need it all coming down the falls. What I've chosen here is I've chosen a little giant tin pump, and this little giant tin pump with the height, the head height. Now, the way they do on pumps is you go from the bottom of where the pump is pumping to the highest level. Here I approximate that about 8 feet. Now, on a 10-foot climb, this pump will do 85 gallons a minute. I'm saying that we'll probably use about 65 of those 85 gallons a minute. So the valve is important so we can slow the water flow down. Okay, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to clean this up a little bit, and then we're going to show you how to set a couple of rocks in the pond and that, and how we place the rock and a little bit of river rock. Okay, what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about setting the boulders in the water feature. What we've done here is we've used a braided sling. The problem about these braided slings, they do have little spurs on them, so you got to wear gloves, and you got to protect the liner. The key to this liner is no holes in the liner. What we're using is we're using a styrofoam. You can pick it at most of your hardware stores. Now I'll take this and break it off and pick a piece up. All I'm going to do is use it to support the weight so we can get the cable back out. Okay, Dan? Okay, what I like to do, before I put all the weight down on the liner, I want to make sure that there's no extra support sitting on the liner itself, so the cable doesn't have a chance to bind or rip while we're taking it out. One thing, if you're putting smaller rocks in, you can always take your scrap liner along your edge of your pond And you can take that and you can cut off pieces of it and put them under the liner, which adds support too. Okay, Dan? Okay. Now you don't want to worry about the styrofoam in the pond because you'll be covering that up with river rock, so that's not a problem. When you're placing the boulders, you want to try to get, each boulder has a unique look to it, and this is probably a little bit past the pond setting, but if you can look at our boulders, how we place them. What I've done on this boulder right here, I tried to capture a nice sea look with a bench look. I had it kind of roll in. I didn't want to take away from the falls, so I didn't want to have it too high and just comfortable. This is set up now where we can pull the liner back, we'll tuck it under, and then this will all be planted out right in here. We've got plenty of liner here that's looped over. All of this liner will be pulled back, tucked and rolled, and then we'll end up tucking it behind here, and then we can push the dirt right up to the boulder. The key here is, again, make sure there's enough liner out of the pool so the water stays inside the pool. Okay. Let's grab a couple of shovels, guys. Okay, what I want to do here is show on the river rock. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out how to do this. The only thing is we don't want to just kind of scatter it all over, so we're just going to shovel in. We're going to fill our benches in. Let's go ahead and just start filling this bench in right here. Now what we've done is we've taken a mixture of a 2 to 6 inch river rock, and we're also using an 1.5 to 3/4 mix. And what they're going to do is just go ahead and fill all the voids in around the rock. Now you can see how as they're filling it in, then we'll take them, hand groom it, and just and fine tune it. Now when they're start planting, they can always pull that river rock back a little bit, put their pots in, and then use it and bring it up around the pots to help hide the pots. What we've done here is we've created a bog garden, and to tell you the truth, this is the first one I've ever done. We've lined the edge where it drops into the deep part of the pool with rocks and that. One thing I didn't want to do is use all the same size. I didn't want this to look like a canal that's been rip-wrapped. We've used your bigger boulders and then your smaller one. Next, what we'll do is we'll put a filter cloth, a weed barrier cloth, along the inside here, which will keep the soil from moistening into the main pool. Then this will be filled up with soil that's got a clay base to it, so it doesn't moist really a whole lot. One of the things that I've been told on this is that you'll use more of like a cow manure. You mix it in with it, which will help fertilize it. To be honest with you, you probably have to go to one of your local nurseries, and they can fill you in on that a little more. Well, the next step we're going to do is we're going to finish rocking all of this all the way around, and you can kind of see how it's starting to take shape now. We're just filling all the voids in with river rock and that, and then we'll finish the filter system down here. So when we come back, hopefully we'll have some water flowing. Well, welcome back. As you can see, we've did some major changes since you've been gone. We've finished rocking around the bank. We've got the water flowing. When you were last here, we were kind of leveling our weir rocks in the pond, getting the water so it would flow off really nice. We've created this bench right here, makes it so the water flows off nice and even so it doesn't all run to one spot. What I tried to do is reproduce a little natural look and get it so it rolls up on the rocks and rolls back in the pond. One of the key factors to building a water feature now is retaining the water. So you have to keep checking your edges, keep your rubber tied up around the rim so you can control and maintain all your water. I put a little mortar in here to help get the flow rolling and around the rocks. Now, we've got the pump installed. The pump is now buried underneath here. Our water looks kind of murky, and of course it's going to be that way because the rocks weren't naturally clean. So until it all gets moist down and moist around, going to be murky. We're going to pump this out after we get it full and everything moist down real good. Then I'm going to pump the water back out and make sure that we didn't plug up the filter system. You can see here where we've taken the piping, we got it buried underneath here. We'll put a little more cosmetic rock on it and it runs up and runs up behind us and then it's tucked in. All of the piping will be buried in that. I got a control valve, a foot valve up here, and I'll show you what it looks like when we turn the water down. One of the best thing, of reason for having a foot valve is because it might be a little loud and you need it controlled down. You can have it just more of a midsummer look to a early spring look. Let's put a little bit of slow down to it just so. This is a nice little comfortable look. With this here, you'll probably get a lot of birds that play, and if you get the water moving too fast, your birds might be a little offended, afraid of getting moist down and that. So, but at this, you'll have birds landing in it and moistening and everything in it. The pumps, little giant tin pumps are made so you can crank it up and crank it down and don't hurt the pump. It's better to have a little bit of resistance on the pump, so get a pump that's bigger than you need and then turn it down a little bit. Okay, what I'd like to do now is show you how to hide the liner. What we usually normally do on a falls, we'll take these here. Fine, we got a little bit of water movement on the back side here, so I don't want to put it down too low. I'll roll it down, tuck it down, and then I'll put soil in here, and so it's completely covered. Then with that soil, I can put a plant here that kind of cascades out over the water feature. Okay, the water's coming up pretty fast here. We're going to be at our water level on about another maybe foot and a half of water in that. Along the outer edges here, along these outer edges, we'll bring the rock right up to the water level. The water level should just be a couple inches below this. We've still got some leveling of the rock in here, so it's still a little rough, and we got some movement to do around. I'll take the liner. Now, there's different theories, different ways to do it. Some people will level underneath, put the liner down, put dirt on top of it. I usually like rolling it, or some people will even cut it off. I like saving the liner, just tucking it down along the edge. And then bring your soil right up against this. And that way your planting can come in close to your pond. You're not restricting the size of your pond and that from your planting and have to have a berm of river rock. There's different ways to cope the top of a pond and that. You can use flat rock and run flat rock all the way around, which we will do in this area over here. We're planning this for a wheelchair access. And what they'll be able to do is roll right up here and be able to kind of get right into the pond. And this will be all patio with flat rock kind of weaving in and out. The rest of this will all have a natural look, kind of just a natural coping. We'll even try to get some plant life that crawls out into the pond. You can see our bog garden. I don't want to put the soils in until I'm done filling it and pumping it because I don't want to get a big voice, but we'll fill this in with the filter fabric to retain it in on the inside, and then we'll put some good soil, clay soil in there, and then they can put some bog plant. At the top of the waterfall, we've taken and we put a couple of boulders up there just to kind of accent it. If you don't have the machine work, you can create that look by just stacking some bigger ones that you can manhandle up. And then what we'll be doing next, when we come back, you'll see the plants kind of hanging over and drooping into the pond, which will kind of accent and cover that whole top. What we're trying to do is create a look where it's coming right out of the mountain like a spring effect, which in the northwest here we do have plenty of springs. I'll take and cut off all of the excess liner that I have here when I'm done, right up to the edge of the pole, about maybe a foot and a half away, and then I'll tuck in. You don't want to get rid of all of your extra liner because you want to, when the water level comes up, if you need to do any adjustments, it's easier to cut it off when you're totally done, and after you've done your adjustments, and try to adjust it after you've already cut it off. We've created a water feature here with a budget right around $2,500. The ladies did a water feature that you'd seen earlier that was hitting right around $250 plus or give. I don't want you to feel intimidated by because of our equipment, by the size of the rock we used and that. Some of the most creative water features that I've seen done were done by homeowners that took a little bit of excitement and took a whole summer and put it together in that. So this could be a project that can go on for 2-3 months, or it could be a project that you can do on a weekend in that. So the sky's the limit. Don't let it intimidate you at all. It's more of a creativity idea. It's kind of finding what you like, what looks good for you, and what fits in your yard. A lot of people have different ideas on liners and pumps and everything like that. I gave you a few ideas, a few choices, and because that's what we like using. That's what it works best in the area that we work in that. So I would do some research on it. What we showed you here is probably not all of what you really need to know. There's some more information you might need to know as far as soil contents, plants around your ponds and stuff like that. You're going to have to do maybe a little more research, or go to one of the local yards that sell pond products and ask the experts and have them help you out. So hopefully your pond will turn out, and when we come back, you're going to see what man created on a weekend. Now I'd like you to meet Debbie from Sagawa's Nursery, and she's going to give you a demonstration on how to put water plants in your pond, and she's also going to talk a little bit about fish. Debbie?
Hi, I'm Debbie from Sagawa Nursery, and we're here today to talk about your pond. One of the first things that's really important to do is make sure you know what your water quality is. The way to do that is through chemical testing, and we do that with test strips. pH testing is very important in your pond. You want to try to maintain a pH of right around 7.0. It will be okay if you're at 6.5 or 7.5, but it's very important to stay right around 7. If your pH is off, and it may be if you have used lime or cement or mortar within your pond, because that has a high alkalinity factor, that will make your pond more basic or alkaline, and you need to bring it down through the addition of a pH decreaser. If you have a low or acid pH, then you want to bring that up with an acid or a pH increaser. The other test that you'd want to do, especially if you're keeping koi, is the ammonia testing. Ammonia is a byproduct of fish waste, and ammonia is very toxic to fish, especially koi. Not as important with goldfish. But if you're a koi keeper, or you intend to get koi, it's very important to know what your ammonia levels are and to monitor those on a weekly basis. This product is for when you first put the water in your pond. If you are using city water or any municipal water supply, it probably has chlorine added. Some systems may also have the added ammonia to it, which can combine to create a formula called chloramine. Chloramine is highly toxic to fish, as chlorine is not very healthy either. So by adding this product, which will this product will remove the chlorine, it will break the chloramine, which is the chlorine and ammonia bond, and then remove the chlorine and also dissipate the ammonia, making your water very safe for your fish. Another important thing to check with your water quality is if you have brand new water, you want to add this product, which will condition the water or age it naturally. Aging normally would take 2 to 3 weeks, but you can speed the process up if you're in a hurry with the addition of a water conditioner. What this will do is improve the slime coat of your fish, which for them is their safety band-aid. It helps them be more healthy and more resistant to any diseases or bacteria which may be present in your pond. Adding the addition of salt to your pond water will have a multi-fold purpose. One of these is to decrease the incidence of parasites in your pond, because the salt will kill the parasites. A second will allow for increased electrolyte function on the fish, and what that means is it increases their metabolism so that they're in a very healthy environment. The correct ratio of salt in water is 1 pound per 100 gallons of water. And to mix this up, you take your measured amount in a pail of water, of pond water, and allow it to dissolve, and then pour it around gently around the edges of your pond being sure not to pour it onto plants or onto the fish directly. Now that your water's exactly where you need it to be, you have a wonderful pH, you have salt in there, and you know that your pond is absolutely ready, you can start adding plants. One of the plants that are very beneficial for the health of your pond, not so much for you to look at, but definitely for the health of your pond, is the addition of an underwater oxygenator or a submersed plant. This in particular is called hornwort, and hornwort does several things. It will feed the fish, they'll nibble on the greens, which are very beneficial to them. It will help eat the carbon dioxide which occurs in a pond, and carbon dioxide is one of the factors that leads to algae. So by adding plants that you like to your pond, you can reduce the incidence of algae. We're going to talk now about the types of plants that you'll be putting around your pond. This plant that I have here is considered a bog plant. That means it likes very shallow waters, and it will not thrive if it is in too deep of water. There are many types of bog plants. Most of them are flowering. Some of them can be small like this one, or we have others that can be a little bit larger, but bogs in particular need very shallow water. This is another type of bog plant, and this one's flowering. This is going to be a little bit taller in your pond. It will be about 2 to 3 feet tall, and it gets these little lovely white blooms. Many of the bog plants can be a little bit rangy, but they are prunable, so you can keep them in control if you wish, or choose smaller ones. Other types of plants that go well in the pond are marginal plants. Marginal plants are plants that live on the edge of the pond. That means they live on the margins. It has nothing to do with the quality of the plant. This one here is a water bamboo, and it is, as most bamboos, it can be quite prolific, if you will. It grows rapidly, and it would need repotting on about a every other year basis. But what it will do for you is to soften the edges of the pond. It'll give that contrast between the edge of the water and the edge of the land and give you that nice soft feature. As this plant matures a little bit, it starts to droop some, and it just has a very soft feature. Another plant that I really, really like, and it's delicate, and I would highlight this in a very shaded, or not a shaded so much as a tiny nook, is the stargrass. It has a little tiny white flower on the top. It is a grass, and as it grows and matures, it will get larger and more bushy. But it works very well. It will take water depth to the top of the pot, so you can hide the pot very easily. One of my favorite plants is the arrowhead. This gets these lovely flower stems, and they bloom year-round, or not year-round, but throughout the summer. Has great foliage to offset the times when it's not in bloom. These are all hardy plants, and they'll live in your pond through the winter with no care on your part. When it is time to cut them back after the foliage has died in the fall, make sure that you trim them, leaving about an inch of stem above the water line. This plant also can take water depths to the top of the pot, so you can hide the pot within the water, and when you do trim it above the water line about 1 inch. This is also one of my favorites. Everyone's familiar with the common cattail. Well, that's what this is with a little twist. This is a variegated cattail. It will produce cats in its second year, which in this case would be next year, and will have a regular cattail much like you're used to. One of the benefits of cattails is that they're very hungry plants, so the nutrients that your pond is creating through the ecology of having fish and your water and interaction with your filter, one of the benefits of having this type of plant is that it's very hungry, and it really will eat up the nutrients that are created by your pond. It really likes the nitrogen because it's a very green plant. This particular one, being variegated, gives you a lot of contrast and color in your pond throughout the year, even when it's not having a cattail on it. This particular plant is called a thalia, and its really cool benefit is that it likes deep water. This is one of the only plants that I'm aware of that will take water depths well over the pot, but still give you some height. And because it is tall, it has a very nice, long-lasting flower bloom, which is dusty purple, and it will bloom all summer long. They also have a very interesting foliage This plant is hardy and will do really well for you in your pond. This is a water lily. Water lilies are an entirely different class of plants. They're not marginal, nor are they are submerged, however. Their leaves need to lie flat on the surface of the water, so it's important when you place your lily to place it at a height that will allow the leaves to lie flat. At the end of the season, after the leaves have fallen off for the winter, you can then place the lily deeper in your pond, anywhere between 9 and 24 inches over the top of the pot, and then next year's growth will grow to the height of your pond. That's one of the beauties of the lily. Once they've grown, they probably won't grow higher, but you can adjust that height in the wintertime, and they will grow properly. This is a type of lily known as a free-flowering lily or a free bloomer, and that means it has a non-stop show of blooms. This particular one is called Mela, and it's pink, and has a really pretty carnation pink bloom on it. That's just, there's one bud coming up here, there's another one on the way, and I can see the start of a third. And that means it's just going to give you a non-stop show of really pretty lily color. Lilies are very hungry. One of the foods that's important to feed your lily is an aquatic tablet. This is one type. The tablet is pushed into the soil next to the tuber of the lily, and that's done first thing in May as the lily's beginning to wake up from its long winter sleep, and again about mid-July. And the heavy bloomers, this is a perfect time to put 2 of the fertilizer tabs in because they are very strong feeders, much like a rose would be, and it's important if you want good strong blooms to feed your lily. The next or last class of plants that we have for the pond are the floating plants. Now, floating plants are tropical. All of the other plants we've talked about today are hardy and can winter over in your pond exactly as you leave them. The tropical plants, however, will die off with the first frost. You can extend their life a little bit when you know it's going to be cold in the fall by bringing them in at night and putting them back out in the morning. This particular one is known as a water hyacinth. Water hyacinths are very rapid growers. They put off a shoot, and one plant can easily turn into 10 without any trouble at all in the warm, humid summers. They can bloom. They're an unreliable bloomer, but when they do, it's a gorgeous lavender blue orchid looking bloom that'll last about 3 days, and they're really pretty. Another type is known as the water lettuce. This is also a floater, and it looks like a small cabbage or a little head of lettuce. Also, these plants as floaters do a terrific job in your pond of helping to keep it clean because their roots floating throughout the water will eat all of the nutrients produced by your filter. They will also shade your pond and offer food for your fish. So they're just a wonderful all-purpose plant that even though they are annuals, they're going to die in the cold, are absolutely worth their weight in gold for what they do for the health of your pond. Several other types that we have today are known as salvinia. And salvinia are very tight little clusters of leaflets, and they also grow by expanding and just making more of themselves. And one small cluster like this could fill up about a 1-foot square by the end of the summer. The last one that I'll show you today is known as frogbit. And frogbit is a cluster and collection of leaf. They have spongy type leaves, so they float on the surface very well. Excellent, excellent cleaner of water. If you have a little bit of cloudy water or some debris in your water, throw in a handful of frogbit, and in about a week you're going to be surprised at the clarity that you'll receive from the frogbit. They also have a very tiny spike-like flower that shoots up in the summertime, and they can reseed themselves if you have any kind of soil or stone in the bottom of your pond. This actually concludes our talk today on pond plants. You can talk to your Sagawa specialist or any pond specialist who will give you much more in-depth information. Thank you, and enjoy your pond.
Thank you, Debbie. That was very informative. Well, we've got our project just about done here. We've drained it out, we've cleaned it up. We're hitting about $3,000 into it. And that's a little bit of pocket change, and again, like I say, you can do a smaller project that won't drain you as bad. We've got our plants in our bog garden, and we've got some plants around the outside edge. Right now, I'm kind of attempting to put a patio around it too, to make it a little more comfortable to walk up onto it. That way you can get a little closer to it too, so you're not sitting at a far distance in that. The filter system seems to be working and pumping, and I think we're about ready to close this up. This project's going to go on probably probably all summer long. I'm going to get a little bored sitting around, and I'll come out and see something else I want to tackle on that. So, and this could be a good project for you too. On behalf of Interstate Rock and Shagawa Nursery and myself, Jerry Cates, I'd like to thank you, and hope we'll see you in one of our yards soon.
Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, call the Interstate Rock office near you.